All right, let's talk about Dispatch, ladies and gentlemen. So this game comes out, and in a world where Telltale experiences were said that they could never succeed, right? We saw like Telltale do their thing. Life is Strange did its thing like one time, and somehow that series is still around, even though it feels like there's never been a new entry in the series that succeeded as much as the first one. But then comes Dispatch with like a Hollywood cast, and it's just really exciting. It does really well. It sells really well. It had a week-to-week release. People really loved it. Well, it finally came to Switch, and it's censored. And this is a shame because this is a game that I actually would have bought a second time because I think playing it on Switch would feel really at home since there's no real like heavy gameplay elements here. When it released on Switch, though, it has not been a simple launch for them. And no, we're not talking stinky Switch. We're talking censorship. So, Dispatch is censored on Nintendo Switch. This was reported by IGN, and I think seeing is believing here. So we have this review here from Switch Up. Great channel, by the way. I love these guys. They run a great channel. And they review a ton of Nintendo Switch products if their name wasn't anything to go by. And you'll see here in their review the way they censor things. That would originally be a dude's you-know-what. But that is how the game... that is how the game censors things. So as you can see here, this has been added in. And we know Nintendo, I don't want to get demonetized. We're going to just show my pretty face here now. We know Nintendo has always been a little bit kid-friendly. Like, hey, no meat on the table. Get that out of here, right? And I kind of understand it. Like, they're the kid-friendly platform, and they get weirdly responsible about things. But Nintendo's changed over the years, right? We're seeing with the Switch generation begin, like M for mature games were arriving on the platform. Like Doom 2016 made its way to Switch, and that was a big moment. Like Doom on Switch? Really? Like this M for mature game? Nowadays, you don't really blink at seeing an M for mature game, especially when recently one of the big launch games for Switch 2 was Cyberpunk 2077. So a game that has plenty of nudity managed to make its way onto the platform uncensored. Or did it? Well, Nintendo responded to this. And here's what they said. Nintendo requires all games on its platforms to receive ratings from independent organizations and to meet our established content and platform guidelines, a Nintendo spokesperson, if I could speak, told IGN. While we inform partners when their titles don't meet our guidelines, Nintendo does not make changes to partner content. We also do not discuss specific content or the criteria used in making these determinations. And IGN summarizes perfectly. In other words, yes, Nintendo does require Switch content to meet certain requirements, but it will flag it if there's a problem. However, Nintendo does not change the game itself, meaning it is left to the developer. So what you're seeing here, that is a ad hoc decision, the developers of Dispatch, right? Now, this seemed like a pretty cut and dry situation, but the more people asked questions and the more ad hoc talked, the more the situation just got a little fishy of like, what exactly happened here, right? One thing we need to kind of go over to before we get deeper into what's happening with Dispatch and this potential censorship issue is Cyberpunk 2077 again. So here's Games Radar from 2020 saying it's to be heavily censored in Japan. They say, according to Press Start, naked male and female characters will all be donning underwear in the Japanese version, and sexually explicit content will be revised. Depictions of genitals are getting the chop as well. Any billboards or graffiti in the shape of genitals will be absent. So if you live in Japan and we're looking forward to some meticulously crafting of your character's body parts or screen grabs, yeah, then you're not going to be able to do that, right? So a lot of people are wondering, okay, why doesn't Dispatch just have its own version for a particular region like Japan that is censored, where it has this separate SKU for them versus the rest, which is uncensored? And I have a theory as to what exactly happened here, which I wouldn't call it laziness. I think that's a cheap argument for a developer, but they tried to be cute with something that they thought people wouldn't care about and tried to minimize the work they would have to do to accomplish that, and it bit them in the ass, and I think people cared a lot more than they realized. So they submitted a statement about this, right? Because Nintendo responded, put the blame on Ad Hoc, and Ad Hoc responds, and they say, as Nintendo states, any game that's going to be on the Nintendo platform needs to meet Nintendo's established content and platform guidelines. This is the key point. Nintendo has content guidelines. Our game didn't meet those guidelines, so we made changes that would allow us to release on their platform. That's what happened here. Honestly, we thought this would be obvious since we're the devs that released the fully uncensored version of the game on other platforms. In reality, numerous fans, as we're going to talk about here, had blamed Japanese rating board Sero for the censorship, as it is widely believed to be the reason why an entirely separate Japan-only version of Cyberpunk 2077 exists for the Nintendo Switch without nudity or beheading. We initially assumed, like some of you, that because of games like The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk are on the platform with similar types of uncensored mature content, Dispatch will be allowed to do the same. During the porting process, it became clear that was not the case. So we asked that we include a disclaimer on the store page to inform customers that content would be different than on the other platforms. We worked with Nintendo to get the storefront language approved. Where we absolutely need to take full ownership is the displacement of that disclaimer. Again, it was our intent to go out of our way to tell people looking to buy the game that the content was censored. While we didn't have complete control of the language, we did have control of the placement. Wires got crossed and we put the disclaimer in the field, literally titled disclaimer, instead of the about the game section. We didn't catch this until after the launch when we saw people who were saying we should have called out the changes on the store page, and we went to make sure it was there. It technically has been there in the entire time, just in the absolute worst spot that makes it look like we were trying to hide it. This is 100% our mistake, and it was fixed in the Americas store page a few hours after the launch to give more visibility. We also added a disclaimer before purchase. As of writing this, the other regions have either published this change or are in the process of reviewing them. So far, so good, but again, people are wondering, like, you owned it, but why is it censored? Like, why can't you have, like, this happening here without this bar? I don't know if y'all want to see this. But, you know, why can't this happen? Like, why could Cyberpunk get by? Again, people go to Sero and think that, well, Cyberpunk was censored in Japan, but the rest was uncensored because it was a separate SKU. Okay, maybe that's what they have to do here. Well, when they were asked about this again, there's another article. Nintendo Switch developer in censorship snafu legally unable to explain why it couldn't release a separate uncut version like Cyberpunk 2077. So, yeah, they actually do answer this question. To the point of the article, they say Ad Hoc has responded to this point too, if only to say is prohibited from explaining the situation. Ad Hoc is legally unable to provide further comment on why separate SKUs were not possible for different regions, adding that there was no possibility for an uncensored physical edition either, and it has no physical edition plans to announce. Okay, here's my guess as to what happened here. They tried to cut costs, they tried to get really cute with it, someone somewhere screwed up, and now we are seeing the results of that. They're too deep to fix it. Just let it rock. It is what it is. There's no way of a physical version getting around this. Okay. There's no way of a separate SKU getting around this. Okay. And they're not telling you why, because now they're legally unable to, which is one of the most infuriating answers yet. So my guess, again, is that what happened here with Dispatch was just like bad call, trying to protect someone. And because I think the real answer would be earned a response of overturn it. We're angry. We're upset. They're trying to just obfuscate the truth a little bit here. And so that's what's happening here. I thought this was a really fascinating story because it's not as cut and dry as it looks, right? We've seen Nintendo censorship stories before, but never to this length where it's like a developer had the blame put on them by Nintendo. And it's like, okay, so you were responsible for why this looked this way. Why is that? And they're like, hey, it's on us. Our bad. It's like, okay, it's your bad. So what are you doing to like fix this? Because this seems avoidable like other developers did. Well, legally speaking, we can't really tell you that. It's just going to be how it is. I find the whole situation fishy, man. So I wanted to spotlight it because I don't think it's as cut and dry. And I think it's just someone who made a pretty bad choice getting protected here. Got some super chats here to catch up on. Disgoonerable the game. Yeah, Dispatch has definitely got some gooner sensibilities from what I've seen online. How are we feeling about Dispatch, y'all? This is a game I really want to play. Japanese version on PS5 is also censored. Good to know. Japanese version of the game is also censored. Yeah, so just really weird situation there. On PS5, you're saying. Okay. Thank you for your super chats, guys. Yeah, this whole situation involving ye olde Dispatch. Strange one, that. Dispatch is lacking in the choice and consequence area, apart from a few moments. Still worth playing, though. Great writing characters. Interesting. I thought it'd be a little more choice and consequence driven. Why do people want nudity on a platform that's the most kid-friendly out of them all? Well, I think, first of all, Dispatch is rated M for mature, so kids shouldn't even be able to buy the game, so it kind of comes down to the parents. And then I think also adults play on this platform too. Like Switch isn't like a toy, you know, like a kid's toy. So I understand where you're coming from. Obviously, yeah, you're not trying to overexpose shit to like kids, but I think it's just for the people who want to play Dispatch, which is otherwise a, you know, it's a superhero game. Like it's a story. I think, you know, it's fair for those people to want to play those games. Ghost Unlimited, I love that response. I love that you said great point, because sometimes people are very argumentative, and I hope I don't come across as Mr. I told you so or anything like that when I try to like respond to people that way. So I appreciate that you were cool with the point I was trying to make.